All right, welcome to another video. It's been a little while. My name is Josh. I'm sitting here with the mayor of Mason here, and I'll let you kind of introduce yourself.
My name's Russ Whipple, and I'm the mayor of Mason.
And we're gonna kind of cover a few topics. Obviously, what's kind of going on right now. That's the hot topic of the day. So I want to kind of separate, because we're not voting to bring a data center. So I do want to cover a couple things about data centers themselves, just because that's a topic right now. But I do want to move on to what we're actually voting on.
Yes.
So what is a data center?
I don't know the technical definition, but what I describe it to people is a giant warehouse full of computers. That are operating. They're not computers for sale. They're computers that are running, and they're all interconnected, and they basically form the infrastructure that creates the cloud.
And are there restrictions currently that you know of as far as environmental things in place? I mean, generally for any company really, but for data centers specifically?
I don't know of anything particularly targeted towards data centers off the top of my head, primarily because data centers are not polluters. Data centers don't really produce any pollution. There's been a number of articles and a number of cases brought up, but in every single one of them, there was some extenuating circumstance that caused whatever problem they had. It wasn't the data center per se. I mean, data centers are literally a giant building full of computers, and there's no overuse of chemicals. There's no disposing of bad things. I'm sure that when the computers go bad, they will have ways of recycling them that they'll want to, because there's value there. The water and whatnot that they use is all captured and sent back to the wastewater treatment system. Everything else would be no different than any other development, whether it was industrial, commercial, or residential. It's probably, most of the industrial businesses in town are much more prone to being a polluter in every way than a data center is.
And so a lot of people are, what we hear kind of repeated over and over is, I don't want this near my house, I don't want this in town. If I understand, what the M3 is trying to do is, I mean, it'll basically, what I want to say, it'll make it so they won't build in town. Is that what we're doing?
No, that's not really the intention. Where people build is not except to the extent that it deals with our zoning map and maybe our future land use map, but usually it's our current zoning map that we would go by. We're not usually directing where things go particularly. Usually we're dealing with areas or zones or whatnot. That being said, the main reason we're writing the M3 ordinance is that if a hyperscaler data center were to come in, which is the monster ones that take hundreds of acres to build, they could come to Mason right now, and our current zoning ordinance under what we call the M2 zone would be a zone where they could build. We don't have data center listed in our current zoning ordinance as a particular use. So when that happens, by law, the zoning director determines what the best use that is listed that's closest matched to what is being proposed. And in this case, that would be a warehouse. And so you do a warehouse in M2, it's a use by right in M2, and the M2 zoning district has very limited standards to deal with some of the things that a lot of people would want to mitigate regarding a hyperscaler data center. We've built the M3 code or M3 ordinance to mitigate as many of those things as we can, and we're very confident that what we've got would do just that pretty much everything anyone's shown any concerns about, we've addressed it. But the main reason we wrote M3 was to be prepared if somebody came. We have no land currently zoned M3, obviously, because it doesn't exist. Once it exists, we also won't have any land zoned M3 until somebody comes and makes a request to zone land M3. The M3 ordinance requires a minimum of 300 acres to even rezone. People have asked me, well, where do you have 300 acres vacant in the city? We probably don't have a parcel in the city or even a group of land within the city that would get all the way to 300 acres that would be shaped and be appropriate for something like this. But we do have land that would be close, and these kinds of operations are not afraid to demolition things. So they'll buy land that has buildings on it if it suits their needs. There's also the chance that some farmer near the city boundary might want to sell their land to somebody who wants to put in a hyperscale data center, in which case they would most likely have to come to the city for some sort of an agreement to bring them into the city because of their water and sewer needs, and that's another option. But at this point, all we're trying to do is put standards in place in case somebody comes, so that we will have some say in how they develop whatever they develop, to make it as palatable as possible, knowing full well that it's a unique use.
So there's nothing currently that would stop something like the city of Mason can't say this type of organization or this type of company can't build here. That's illegal.
Yes, it's illegal for us to block a use in general for a long period of time. It's actually illegal technically to do it at all, but cities have done it. There have been calls for us to do it with what they call a moratorium. Courts have heard challenges to these, and lower courts have in some cases upheld them if they were for a short period of time and they were in response to an immediate threat to health, safety, and welfare of the community, but they still put the city in legal jeopardy. Even if you were not to lose a lawsuit, to even go through a lawsuit costs money. And so even though these things tend to be over in 6 months at the most, in that 6 month time, you could be sued and you could have to defend yourself. And then when the moratorium goes away, you could still be sued, because during the time of the moratorium, you're taking away someone's ability to use their property. It's a takings. It's what they call a takings. You're taking away their value without any real legal purpose to do so. So we're actually not a big fan of that, but that's what some places do. But on the law and the books, the only thing that I know of that actually a city can outlaw as a use is marijuana, and that's because the state statutes that made it legal specifically allow for that. There are no state statutes that specifically allow for it for anything else that I know of, except for marijuana. So we had, and even in the case of marijuana, the people had to vote to do it. The city council could have done it, but then somebody could come in and say, here's your ordinance, we want you to vote on this, and if you put this in, and that's what we did. We had people vote on an ordinance, and they said no, and so we said, okay, well, people don't want marijuana in town. And that's the only one that I know of we could do that. You couldn't have a vote and do the same thing with the data center. It would be illegal. The city would not be able to win that. If it was challenged.
And me including, I'm sure a lot of people, because I've seen that kind of in the comments on some posts. What about marijuana? So that's I was going to bring that up anyway. So that's good. Yeah.
What the state law says matters. In the state law on marijuana, it was very clear. It gave these different avenues. I mean, when medical came in, it was a little bit different. I can't remember when medical came in if you had to opt in or out, but you could do one when they came to the recreational law. Then it was opt out or in. And then they also built into it the ability for referendum for the citizens to force a city to go either way, to write an ordinance either way. That was with marijuana, but no other use do I know of where that's the case.
Okay. Yeah. I think myself included, but the general population is very, I gotta be careful how I say, I'll just talk about me. I'm not knowledgeable on the inner workings of how government things how things get passed exactly. I have general knowledge, obviously, but yeah, I think there's sort of a just lack of knowledge on these things that makes people feel uncomfortable, and I think that falls more back on the people here, and me included, rather than necessarily the city government. Because the government's supposed to be run by the people, and when I get lazy and I don't pay attention to what's going on, and then all of a sudden something blows up, I start seeing everybody talking about it, and then I gotta get caught up. That's kind of where I'm at right now, is I'm trying to educate myself. I'm trying to figure out, okay, what's going on, what can we do, can't we do, what is a data center, what's and I feel like, and I'm talking to myself, we as citizens need to do a lot better when it comes to keeping an eye on what's going on. I mean, the council meetings, the planning commission, it's all public. They stream it I think every meeting is streamed live.
We have some technical difficulties every once in a while, but our intent is to stream and then subsequently post all city council and planning commission meetings.
And I think I mean, you can go to the meetings in person too, which I work a little bit later, so I don't get to make it to many. But yeah, I mean, I can watch them on my phone and stuff. And for me, when stuff like this happens, where it's really divisive, it's a really loud issue, it always makes me fall back to I should have been paying attention this whole time. And how can government officials, I guess, local, I guess, what is the process right now? If you wanted to let people know, hey, this is something that's happening, do you guys just put it on the website, or what is the outreach method right now?
Well, it depends on the topic. For something like this, when this all started, it was just perceived like any other ordinance amendment that was going to be an agenda item. So it would have been on an agenda that would have been posted to both the city's website and the city's Facebook page. It's a public meeting, and so we have certain posting requirements for certain public meetings. I can't always keep up with it, so it may have been even advertised in the state journal somewhere, because it has to be put in a newspaper, kind of a holdback or throwback to the old days when you had lots of newspapers around.
Right.
So we would have just treated it that same way, and it's the same way we would treat anything. Because I actually agree with you. I tend to believe in Mason that the reason we tend to have a fairly quiet operation of things with government and whatnot is that people they're not unhappy about it, and that they understand what the limits of what the city can do and can't do, and that what we're doing is pretty darn well for a city our size and in this region, and they're not necessarily that unhappy about it. What's happening now with the data center is a challenge, because the vast majority of people that are complaining to the city don't live within the city limits. So it's kind of creates a difficulty for a council member who's an elected official to deal with a lot of noise, a lot of threats, a lot of comments that seem to not have anything to do with accomplishing a good end goal. And you don't also even live in the town that is what every city council member is elected to represent. So there's another element of this that makes it a little bit complicated. But people need to stay informed, and the best way to stay informed is to monitor the social media and the websites of the city. The city doesn't hide anything; it's all put out there. If we make a mistake on something, we correct it. And the other way is to, if you know some of the city council members, or a city council member, a planning commission member, feel free to talk to them. We're all available. Most of us are very available, and we all have public email addresses that are on the city's website. Can all be contacted. I've never known of a single city council person that was contacted by a resident for a concern that didn't go, or at least call and find out what it was and see if there was anything they could do. But the government we have is called representative government. Everybody should understand that. From the federal level all the way down to city council, it's representative. The people don't do everything. They elect people that represent them to do it. So that means that me sitting in a meeting in a town of 8,300 people with around 5,000, 6,000 voters, 5,000 voters, I have to somehow divine what's best for the people from the comments of 50.
Yeah. Yeah.
So when people come into the meetings and they're all excited or passionate or emotional about something, and if a council member, myself included, but I won't speak for the others, I'll speak for me, doesn't necessarily jump right on the bandwagon, they need to understand that I also know a lot of people in town that aren't at the meeting that I've talked to.
Yeah.
And I know what they think as well. So the biggest thing is we just got to all accept that we may all have some differing opinions, and the job of each of us, quite frankly, is to convince the other. It's not the job of the other to accept. It's your job to convince. And usually you convince a whole lot better with sugar rather than vinegar. And
That is
right
true.
now we're getting a whole bunch of vinegar.
Yep. Yeah, I've at a couple of the meetings I've been to, and the comments and stuff that you hear, I mean, some of it's just, almost conspiratorial, type stuff. I mean, there's no, currently, Meta or Facebook or Google, nobody's reached out and contacted the city.
We've had industry contacts. We've never made that a secret. We've had industry contacts. That's what got us started on this whole thing, is the people in the industry contacted the city because they, we're in the middle of the city. We have power, electrical power near here. We have a water and sewer system that's municipal, which they would need. So we've been in contact with people in the industry. What we don't have is an applicant or an application to rezone or to submit a site plan for review or anything like that. We don't know any of that. What we have is what is normally the process. You do your due diligence. A new technology comes up, or the potential for a new development comes up. The city needs to, through its staff, primarily, the staff has known about the possibility of data centers in the region a lot longer than I have, because I didn't even pay much attention to know the legislation passed a year ago that set up the state incentives, but the staff did, and then the city staff was then contacted by people in the industry inquiring about our capacities, and if you had to go out into the township, how would that work, and get all of that figured out. So we've been in contact, and I don't think that's a bad thing, because it's important for the development of cities, and I think it's important for the city of Mason, for our development, that we work both with residents and with developers and with landowners and with township officials, everybody to try to find some common good that we can all wrap our arms around, knowing full well that change is often difficult, that Mason is a fairly stable town. We haven't had a big development of any kind in, boy, it's been 20 years, I would imagine. So many people have never seen one. But I can tell you, in the last 30 years, you've built Meyer, Gestamp, Michigan Packaging, Riverwalk, Rainer Ponds, Hunting Meadows, Franklin Farms. All of these were empty land in the last 30 years. And if you don't know where they are, you can look them up. They are big subdivisions or big industrial developments or big commercial development in the case of Meyer. This has all happened in the last 30 years. Mason has grown. It just has been in kind of a lull the last 20 or so, where it's Summerwood's another one. It's just kind of, I think, been lost on people that Mason would ever have to grow or expand or develop or improve its tax base. And the fact is, we have to, just like everybody, every family, every business. Costs are not going down, and the demands on the city staff, the demands for services are also going up. So the cost of services are going up, and the demands for services are going up. Well, the revenue's got to come from somewhere, and the city has, 3 or 4 major revenue sources. Property taxes is the biggest one, but it's not. I don't even know if it's over half. If it's not, it's around half. So maybe a little over half. So yeah, if we have a chance to increase our property tax take, and also in the case of a data center, I've said this in public as well, a data center has very, very low impact on city services. It's not like Meyer or Gestamp where the fire department's going to respond there all the time, or the police department's going to go out there all the time, or ambulances are going to go out there all the time, or they're going to have lots of issues with water or whatever, or plowing streets like you would have with a residential development, because it's just a giant warehouse with a very limited number of employees, very limited trips, and very limited fire hazard danger. It's going to be what we call low impact, so it will pay high property taxes, and it will have a limited pull on city services. It's kind of a dream sort of a development in a way, if we can structure it such that it's not a nuisance to the neighbors in the city. I don't know why we wouldn't at least consider it, and that's kind of the position we're in, is first of all, get a law in place that we can control how it's developed, and then if somebody comes forward with an application, then people can debate and argue over that particular development, because then you're actually talking about something. Then you have numbers and a plan, and you have a location, you can put that all together. Right now, most of the arguments they're all hypothetical. I don't know how you argue with a hypothetical.
Yeah, I mean, I think everybody shows up to the meeting and stuff to speak thinking we're voting, like the trucks are at the gates and we're breaking ground tomorrow. Do you want to do it or not? That's what it comes across as. And I think that's sort of the public not doing the research, keeping up on what's going on in the city, and getting hit with something like this, and now you're scared and whoa, let's slow down, what's going on. But the process has really been pretty slow. We had 2 open houses that people could come in. So when it comes to, I guess, that balance of like doing what you believe to be best for the city of Mason versus people's opinions and stuff that could be misinformed, how do you balance where you fall on something like that? I mean,
well, it's incredibly difficult to do that when they're calling you names, threatening you, accusing you of violating the law, of being on the take, of being bribed, of having secret NDAs, non-disclosure agreements, booing your daughter in the middle of a meeting, attacking your daughters on Facebook. I'm going to tell you, it's very, very, very difficult to even listen to. But it's not my first rodeo, and I am willing to accept those slings and arrows, but I will not back down from doing what's the right thing. I may lose. I may not be able to have the votes on city council, but my conscience will be completely clear. And I think that the stupidest thing the city could do right now is slow down too awful much on this M3. Because if we don't have this in place and a data center does come in, we're going to be in a very bad, it's going to be way worse. And I think what people need to understand is the normal process for enacting a zoning ordinance amendment would be, it could take 3 weeks. It'd take 3 weeks plus 20 days. You put them, we would have an ordinance at the city council meeting where we would read it and introduce it. The next week, it would go to the planning commission where they would have a public hearing. And then the very next week, it would go back to the city council for a second reading and adoption. And then it becomes effective 20 days after adoption. So you're looking at a total of about 34 days, 35 days in that range from the start to finish is normal. This one, we actually took it to the council 2 weeks early, skipped 2 weeks, had more amendments to it, then took it to the planning commission, and then back to the council. So it was an automatically 2 week longer process up to the point where it was tabled at our last meeting. I certainly have no big problem with maybe trying to formalize the process by which we get input from people, although I think it's a little disingenuous. No, it's a lot disingenuous for the people that are fighting this process all along to say that the city has not been listening to input. We've actually made multiple changes to the ordinance based on public input, and we were going to make some more on our last meeting that came up last minute over the weekend, but never really got publicized because the ordinance was tabled. So it's my hope that in the very near future we can bring it back off the table and get it amended so people see what it actually was. And then if we need to defer it for a period of time, to give some time and have some sort of a comment period or a way for people to give comment, that would be great. I don't think a citizen advisory committee is going to work. There was no direction given in the motion by the motioner or even in the discussion, and it was even asked for. You're not giving any direction about how is this supposed to work. I mean,
how would one of those work?
I'd have no idea, because it would be an ad hoc kind of committee. Those things are almost never short term, because it takes a fair amount of time just to get them organized. You know, who's going to pick who's on it? Where are you going to pick them from? How long are they going to be on it? How often are they going to meet? When they get organized, who's going to lead them? What's the format of their meetings? I mean, you have to all of this stuff to go through, and the first 2 or 3 are the biggest ones. Is who's going to pick who's on it? Where are you going to pick them from? And and how often are they going to meet? And what is their objective to be? So I'm hoping that people will understand that I am not necessarily against slowing down a little bit. I don't think it's necessary, but if it makes some people feel a little bit more comfortable, that's marvelous. I'm a little cautious. I don't think it's going to change anyone's mind that's pushing for this. I think their whole objective is to delay. But in the spirit of trusting them at their word, I'm hoping we can bring it off the table and amend it and then defer it. And if we, instead of a citizen committee, perhaps we could put together a comment period where we'd ask for written formal comments. That would be more inclusionary. You wouldn't exclude anybody. You wouldn't have a committee of a small number of people. Anyone, send it for the next 3 weeks. Send us a written comment. It could be a suggestion. It could be an opinion. We don't really care, but know that we're going to evaluate all of them on some set of questions plus. And we show those questions. They'd be written questions like, is it legal? Does it put the city in legal jeopardy? Is it already in the code? Is it already in the M3 draft?
Right.
Is it already in state law? Does it create the potential for a higher quality development? You know, these kinds of things would be used to assess, which the reason it's so easy for me to do that is how we assess everything. Whenever, I'm a principal drafter on this M3 ordinance, and I've not made a secret about that. Whenever we've discussed changes to it, that's pretty much how we go through the hierarchy. Well, is it legal? Okay, it's legal. Is it already here? No. Okay, we put it in. Is it already in city ordinance? I've searched our ordinances for many things, and actually in the original draft ended up taking stuff out because I realized, oh, it's already covered in our code. So I'm hoping we get to that, and then defer, like I said, defer the ordinance for a period of time, to give time for those comments. But I've got to first of all formalize this idea and present it to council, and the council's going to have to approve it. Right now, it's tabled, and they've had, somebody said put a moratorium on, but again, the moratorium requires an ordinance. Nobody directed the staff to do the ordinance. The Citizen Action Committee, nobody directed the staff to do anything on it or what particularly to do. So there's a lot of questions left. So hopefully we can move forward and figure something out that meets at least the spirit of what people say they want.
Yeah.
And you know what they say they want, and then we can move on. Because the fact of the matter is, the longer we wait, I think the more significant the jeopardy is. I'm a person who believes that data centers will be coming to Michigan. I don't think that's even a question. The state wants them. The federal government wants the state to want them. We have a governor and a president who fought like crazy and right now completely agree on one thing, that data centers are critical infrastructure, and the state of Michigan wants to participate in that growth. We have communities in this state that are already jumping on board, that are willing to participate in it. I realize that some people that live around Mason may have some concerns about it, but you know, they also had concerns when we built the industrial park south of town that was carved out of township land. And I guess I can understand that to some extent. But the fact of the matter is there's processes in place. The primary person in my mind in any of these things is the property owner. If the property owner wants their land to be in the city and they have a bona fide reason for doing that and the city will accept it, I don't know why anyone should be able to stop it. I don't understand why a person who lives on the other side of the township should be able to come in and say that farmer can't sell their land. That doesn't make sense to me. I don't think they would want anybody doing that to them with their property.
Right.
And I don't think it's right to say that you want to do it to others. I understand the whole concept of kind of the I don't know, the melancholy of, you know, things are changing. Mason's not the sleepy town. Well, in my time here, and so far there's only been 1 or 2 people that have shown up to a meeting that have lived here longer than me. In my time here, I've already rattled off things from the last 30 years, but in my lifetime, it's even more significant. I mean, I remember when the Mason elevator was a huge, thriving grain elevator, and in the spring and the fall, it was tractors and tractors and trucks nonstop. And they were, during the fall harvest, the dryers are going and dumping dust all over the place. I mean, when the Wyeth, which became Lear, which is now a warehouse, was running, it was a big factory. When the plaza where Family Farm and Home is, when that was first built, it had a grocery store in it. It was all full, and at the other end was a bunch of buildings that had a theater and a pizza place and a couple other shops in it. I mean, the change is always going to happen, and I know it's hard for people to sometimes grab onto that and grasp it. And the problem that we have here right now, though, is not so much people are upset about change, but that people have made other people evil because they disagree with them. And I think that's just totally wrong and shameful in my mind.
Yeah. Yeah, my frustration with being at the meeting and kind of listening is nobody's really standing up and saying, well, I would recommend that we include this or this language to make something stricter in this way or something. There's no real pushback with solutions. It's only people getting up and saying, I don't want cancer. And it's like, whoa, like what do,
like implying that I do.
Yeah, right. I mean, anybody at their job or your manager will tell you, don't come to me with a problem without a solution. And that's kind of how my frame of mind is. So I was not at the last emergency meeting, but I was at the one before that, and I just kind of went and stood in the lobby for a little while because I can't imagine sitting up there and having that directed at me. It was kind of annoying enough. And I'm not saying people are dumb or I'm just saying we need solutions instead of just gripes. Like the point of getting up there and talking, sure, you want to give your opinion as a citizen, that's fine. And but I mean, we need to work together on doing something, not just
I agree, and obviously I was there and I did experience it, and it isn't always easy. I don't mind someone coming in and saying they have, like I said, an opinion that they just don't do it, because not everybody's necessarily informed enough to maybe put together a proposal or recommendation. But I do think that everybody should be mindful and held accountable that if you are going to come in and say something is bad and you don't want it, give a reason other than, I just don't want it next to me. What is bad about it for the community? And at the same time, if there are things or arguments or facts that convey potential benefits, take them seriously. And finally, if the person on the other end of that conversation doesn't automatically just jump on board with your idea, don't vilify them. Don't start out in the conflict, if you want to call it that, or the debate. Don't start out in the debate with, do this or we'll recall you. That just seems counterproductive to me, because I don't really care. Recall me all day long. Go ahead. Just waste your time, because whether I'm here or not does not change my life or does not define my worth. I'm doing this because I care about the city of Mason, and this is a job that I think I can do pretty well, and I think I've been pretty successful, and I'm a pretty decent communicator, and I have a pretty good grasp of how to do it and the things that are going on behind it. But it's not neutral in my life. I make I make a little money. Yeah, we get paid like $80 a meeting. I don't even know the exact number. So I might make $1,000 a year, maybe a little more. Okay, if you think that's too much, then there's a way to fix that. There's a process. Do it. The thing that just is really frustrating is, again, there's people that would come in and they automatically assume that just because they see something on Facebook, they see a video on Facebook, they hear a comment on Facebook, a snippet on Facebook, that the person who's showing it, that their rendition of events is absolutely accurate as long as it agrees with the other person's preconceived notions. If I already think data centers are bad and you're showing me a video of the city manager and a council member arguing, then obviously that city manager is the evil one because that council member is the one that voted the way I wanted. And you aren't even here to listen. You're not even there to listen to the conversation. You don't have any idea what's being said. You don't have any idea the demeanor of both parties. And yet you make that assumption, throw it up on Facebook, accuse this person of all these horrendous, horrible things, unfounded, never proven, no evidence given other than conjecture and innuendo, and call for her resignation in a public meeting when all this person's doing is the same thing I am, trying to do their job the best they can and serve the community. And the city manager's been one of the best we've ever had. So those are the things that surprise me. I am not going to allow it to bother me too much. I'm not going to say it doesn't bother me at all, but it's really disappointing to see people act that way. Think about this. One of the things that is said over and over and over by people that are arguing against the data center ordinance, and by extension, well, they're really arguing against data centers. They're not even talking about the ordinance. They're just against, and I actually think they're just against development per se, if it affects them or the farmland they like. But the people who are arguing against data centers, no, I lost my train of thought. Well, let's move on. I'll figure that out. It'll come back to me.
Yeah, I think when it comes to opinion too, it's like everybody has an opinion, whether informed or not, and it's like they have the right to speak.
Yep.
And you just kind of have to. Now you you mentioned the city manager. I know there was a video that came out where you couldn't hear anything that was being said. It was through a window, kind of creeper stalker vibes. But it's just there's so much involved with this, but in general society too, with forming opinions without any real knowledge or research. So like data centers cause cancer. Even myself, my main concern with data centers was sort of my bills going up, the water usage, because I know they cool with water. And somebody actually explained to me that how a closed loop system works with those cooling. So it's really not that they're going to use our water to cool. You can look that up. It's a lot to research, but I think we need to really do some research as citizens and then come back with actual ideas.
Yeah, that would be great. That's why I'm hoping to convince the council to, instead of the Citizen Advisory Committee, come up with a period of time where we accept written formal comment, similar to what the federal government does when they issue a regulation. There's usually a comment period where people, organizations are allowed to issue written comments, and they're taken in and they're vetted and they're reviewed, and they may or may not change the regulation. They may or may not influence whether the regulation is given final approval. That's up to the body doing it, just like this is up to the city council. But we are offering this opportunity, or I hope we're going to offer this opportunity. We haven't approved anything yet. And that we can get some decent information through that would, I think it would be, again, I think it would be better than a committee because it will be more inclusive. It won't exclude certain people that may not be picked to be on the committee. It won't be anywhere near as inefficient of just getting started and getting going, even though I know there are people involved with this that want inefficiency. They just want to run out the clock. I know that. So if you're trying to do that, just be known. Let it be known. We know what you're doing. Okay. I've seen this playbook before. But we're going to try to do is the best we can for the city of Mason. And there's enough in my mind concern that it makes some sense to take a little bit of time, which actually is going to end up being more than three times the amount of time we would normally take on an ordinance. We're already twice as long. So we already have taken time. So this contention that the city's trying to ram this through and move it fast is such a bunch of baloney. And I wish people would, just once look themselves in the mirror and say, hey, maybe I'm going to tell the truth today. And usually the people that are saying these things, they know they're not true. I don't think it's always ignorance. And they're just doing it to be bombastic and to just stir the pot and to just get people going and to do everything they can to keep it rolling. Again, I've seen the playbook before. But we're going to plow ahead, I hope. If we don't, as I said, it's no skin off of my nose. I don't get anything out of this. I'm not getting any kickbacks from anybody. I'm probably working for about 4 cents an hour for the city of Mason as a council member. And I would gladly continue to do it for a long time because I really enjoy the work and I really care about the community. The city of Mason's where I grew up. It's where 5 generations of my family have been either in or near. And I have no interest or desire whatsoever to hurt it. And am willing to listen to anybody that's got suggestions on how to do things better. But I'm getting a little sick of being called names and being accused of things with no evidence. If you've got evidence I did something, bring it right to the public meeting. You don't even have to come to me first. Bring it right to the public meeting. I have nothing to hide, and I have way beyond the ability to admit when I'm wrong if you can prove me wrong. But you got to show up with it. You can't just say it. That to me is just cowardly, and quite frankly, I'm sick of it. And but we sit through our meetings and we let people have their time, and hopefully we get a tidbit or two out of there. Which, like I said, we've made changes to the M3 draft. In fact, there were 3 more amendments that weren't listed in the public packet for the last city council meeting, the last regular city council meeting, that were never made public because the ordinance was tabled, that I'd like to bring out because 2 of them were in direct response to things that people wanted to do. So
that's what we need.
Hopefully we get there. But if the intent of people is to kill the whole concept of data centers, period, in Mason, they won't find an ally in me. I'm going to tell you right now, because my intent is never to kill any use. I'm not a big fan of adult bookstores, but I know that the state constitution, the U.S. Constitution, and state laws give people the right to do certain things. And if their right is to do it and the state law says you have to allow it, then let's allow it where we want. And we do. They've got to be in a very particular zone. There's like 2-3 places they can be, and that's it. I'm not a big fan of abortion centers, but if the law says you can have them, and we don't overzone them, they would just be considered a medical office, I guess. And it wouldn't bother me. It's not my land. It's not my land. It's someone else's land. I think that's the primary, and then our job is to set up standards for how the uses are done, how they're mixed, how they're matched, to maintain some level of harmony, to not cause harm to neighbors and that sort of thing. And that's what we try to do, and that's what we're going to do here. We would do it even no matter who might come in that want to build a data center. We would diligently enforce the M3 standard, and I think it would be a dramatic visual impact that people really, some aren't even trying to envision because they've just gotten in their mind somehow that data centers are evil. And they're not. They're necessary. And the funniest comments are the people who are standing there FaceTime living the meeting and complaining about data centers. They come up and say they did a search on data centers and found out this. And at least we did have somebody come up and finally say out loud in public, I've got nothing against data centers. I just don't want them here. So
at least that's honest.
At least that's honest.
Yeah.
But that's not a suggestion for changing the ordinance.
Right. Who determines when it comes to ordinances and stuff? If somebody came in and said, well, this, and this rule is too strict, or what's the line there? Like, how is it just they can take you to court and it's determined there?
Are you talking about what would determine if it's exclusionary zoning or would put us in legal jeopardy? That's something where we have to use our own kind of intuition and experience. We also would lean on our lawyer to say, hey, is there case law? Well, is there statutory law? Or is there case law through the courts that deals with this issue that would give us some sign? On the moratoriums, for instance, it's not legal to do a moratorium. But people have done them, and the courts have actually upheld them as temporary mechanisms, primarily geared for a municipality to put together regulations And they have to be only done, though, when there's an immediate threat. Key word, immediate threat to health, safety, and welfare of the community. I'm having a hard time seeing the immediate threat to health, safety, and welfare of the community of us talking about an ordinance to set standards to actually enhance the health, safety, and welfare of the community. I don't understand that logic. So, so a moratorium could be done, and as I said, usually they're done and they're short term, and you run out the clock. But you're still in legal jeopardy. You know, even though the moratorium ends and then they can do stuff, if you took 6 months of their use away, they could still sue you. And those are not. We've been sued before. The city has lost, and we have won, and we know how expensive it is just to fight. And it's not worth it to do it on purpose. So I'm not a big fan of moratoriums because I'm not a big fan of breaking the law. And I think there's other ways to do it. Quite frankly, there's other ways for us to defer doing a data center. And I'm hoping that we can kind of come to that agreement to, like I said earlier about the way the motion that council passed on M3 at the last regular meeting. I hope we can come up with a slightly different strategy that meets the bulk of the spirit of what that ordinance was trying to, or that motion, was trying to accomplish.
Yeah. One thing I wanted to bring up too is so a lot of people that are against this and stuff and personally attacking you are bringing up the comments at the planning commission meeting. So I want to read the exact quote. So I went back and got it from the video and then kind of let you unpack it. So you said, very few people from the city are here and very few people showed up for our citizen open houses. In my experience, that generally means they don't care about what's happening.
Well, what I was intending to say is I've already said it. My experience is the people of Mason generally don't care to involve themselves in changing something the council's doing because they're not uncomfortable with what the council's doing. I find it interesting that quote, and then I think there was a follow-on stuff about people that lived in the township has been twisted around to where I was saying that township people don't matter. Well, actually, you could say I was saying city people don't matter the way that just stopped when you stopped. Obviously, I don't believe that. And the funny thing is, again, I'm talking to a handful, 2 to 10 to 15 people, 20 people that live in the city at any given time that come to a meeting. I know 1,000 that live in the city. I talk to 100 fairly regularly. So, I mean, I'm not just getting my input just from the people who show up at the public meeting. There are people who don't come to the public meeting because they think they have better things to do and they trust what the council's going to do and they're not going to worry about it. Or they've already given their input. They've called up a council member or the city manager and they've told them what they thought. And I can assure you that for me, and I know the city manager, when they get input that's relevant to what the council's working on, it gets spread around. So I was simply trying to say there that, and I said it, it was in a public meeting. That was an extemporaneous comment, wasn't written down. I was trying to convey a thought with a whole bunch of thoughts going through my head because it was, a lot of people were saying a lot of untrue things during that hearing. I was just simply trying to say, hey, look, when you're at a public hearing and you've got a bunch of people there and you weed out the ones that don't live in the city and you realize it's a fairly small number, that's actually a sign that you're not necessarily doing bad things. I mean, it's pretty obvious. We have had a lot of success in this city in the last year or so. A lot of good things have happened and have had nobody at our meetings to celebrate them. But if something comes up that people are upset about or that's gone wrong, they show up in much larger numbers.
Yeah.
So I know this. This is a fact. Someone can quibble with it, but I'm not making it up. It's absolute fact. It's a verifiable fact that people tend to show up at meetings when they're mad, not when they're happy.
100%.
So if you do all of public policy simply based on the group of people that show up at a meeting, you're going to be making the wrong decision most of the time because it's a small number. They're mad unless you do your due diligence and get out and talk to others and find out, well, is this, because there are a lot of people who don't like stuff that still won't come to a meeting for whatever reason. And you need to do more background on it. I've done a lot of background on it. I have gone to a data center facility. I have studied data centers. I'm an engineer by training. I understand the technology. I was an HVAC and engine cooling engineer. I understand cooling. So the whole concept of cooling with water, or I've even studied some of the other mechanisms by which they can cool these things. Water is not the only one. It just happens to be the least expensive and easiest one most of the time, not always. So I think we're in a good place to have good knowledge, and just wish other people would try to get there as well, and then give good advice instead of just coming in and telling us how wrong we are and how bad we are and how evil we are and how much we don't care about the community, because none of this is correct. None of it's true. It's all hyperbole, and it's all people just trying to, in my mind, just stop something that they don't like, but they're not thinking about the whole community. And I know I'm going to get taken to task for that comment. That they're not, but they're not. Because if you're concerned about the whole community, you would be concerned about more community input. You would be concerned about what my daughter has to say at a public meeting. You would be concerned about what Sean Sodman has to say at a public meeting, even though it's not necessarily right in line with you. And you would applaud them just as much as you applaud all the people that get up there and just me too, me too, me too, me too, me too, me too. If you really cared about the community, you would ask me what I thought instead of just accuse me of being on the take. If you really cared about the community, if you were all about moving here because this is such a great community, you wouldn't make your demonstration of that calling people names in a public meeting just because they're sitting on the other side of the aisle or sitting on the other side of the desk. That is not community. That is not the community that I know in Mason. I know when I first got on council, it wasn't like that. I can tell you it wasn't like that. But it was a different time, different generation of people. I was the young punk then. And it's changed, there's no question. And I just wish people would wake up and accept the responsibility for it, because it's getting kind of silly. A lot of people do shirk from it. I'm not gonna. And we'll see where the chips fall. But it just seems odd to me that people think that they can walk in and say, hey, I moved here because it's such a nice, tight-knit community. But if you do this, you're evil and bad and nasty and want to kill my children. Okay. I've been here 63 years. Raised 3 kids here. I don't know. I'm not sure you've got any evidence for what you just said, that I'm just trying to kill your kids.
Yeah.
And that was said, by the way.
Yeah.
What about the children? What
Yeah.
about the children? You know?
Those are real comments. Yeah, I guess so. What's the best thing that the community can do when it comes to first being informed, but then having a part in this and contributing as a functioning community? Because things are getting broken right now that I just feel like there's too much yelling, nobody's listening. We have the public comment, you guys can't really answer questions up there, so there's no conversation going on. So what's the best thing for citizens to do?
I'm going to try to say this in order of priority. I think the first thing that citizens have to do is respect their neighbors and their neighbors' rights. You have to start there. You have to accept the fact that your neighbor may run their lawnmower at a time of day you don't like. But they're your neighbor, and that just might be the schedule they have until the time they can do it. And the only appropriate thing for you to do is to go over to your neighbor in a neighborly manner and ask the neighbor, hey, is there any chance you could run your mower at a different time? I'm saying this this is an actual thing that happened to my family. My son, when he was young, was not a very good sleeper. And it seemed like two times a week when she would my wife would finally get him to go to sleep. My neighbor, great guy, he's an old guy, he's passed away now, just wonderful guy, loved him. But he would start mowing his lawn 10 minutes after my son went to sleep. And we would laugh about it. I never said anything to my neighbor about it. We just laughed about it. It's just life. You deal with it. You roll with the punches on it. But my point is, you would care about your neighbor's rights as much as you care about your own, because it might be your right someone's coming after someday, and you may want your neighbor to help you. That's the first thing you should do, because everything flows from that. After that, get informed. If you are not paying attention to what the city council agendas are, and they come out the Friday before every meeting, the planning commission agendas as well, and the packet of information that's in there, it gives all the information that the body is seeing, the board members are seeing, and the council members are seeing you can read all that information, and you've got the weekend. Granted, it's not a large turnaround, but it's worked for a long time, and it's very typical. It's very typical in government that's what you get. And then the body always has the right, as a body, to make the decision to defer something. You don't have to act on it that Monday. Maybe you do want more information. But get educated, read that stuff, ask your council members questions. If they can't answer them, bring it to a meeting or ask the city manager. I'm a little leery of saying this, but do some research online. There is a huge ton of information out there. And now, quite frankly, with the advent of AI search results on the search engines now, with a little bit of confirmation research, you can usually write a in English language question and get an answer that is going to just blow your socks off with its level of detail, and it's got footnotes that you can verify and use, and you can double check and get keywords to go search again, and just cross-link, and in a half an hour you could probably make yourself an expert on hyperscale data center cooling, because there's that much information out there. Get educated on it, and then use the process. But it all starts with respecting your neighbors. Why people think that they can come into town and say, I don't want this person to sell their land and make a windfall on it because I like the way their land looks. That's not right.
When you put it like that, that is.
I like the way their land looks, so I don't think they should be able to sell it and make a bunch of money. Okay, that's not the way it's supposed to be. So I wish people would start thinking about that more, and just give people grace. People make mistakes. I've given a lot of grace to a lot of people in the last 3 weeks who've come to city council meetings or planning commission meetings and said nasty things about me, or people that I care about, or people that I respect. I simply wish that any one of them would grant me one scintilla of the grace that I've granted them, as far as my difference of opinions with them, or if I misspoke about something, or to ask me. The comments about people from the township or people from the city being in the meeting, got turned into that Whipple doesn't think township people matter. Never said that. Never said that at all. All I said was there should be a weighting of influence, because you represent the city of Mason, the corporate limits of the city of Mason, not the community of Mason, not the greater Mason community, not the Mason School District, the thing that's called the city of Mason corporate. That's what I represent. That's what the Planning Commission represents. Does that mean we don't take input from outside? Absolutely no. We take input from anywhere. That's good input. But if your only input is don't do it because I like the way the land looks, that's not necessarily,
Yeah.
And that's my mind. I know there are people that probably disagree with that think all land is public land and they should be able to dictate everything that goes on it just because that's their philosophy. I don't have that philosophy. Our country's laws don't support that philosophy, and I'm a big believer that you have the right to use your land. I think zoning ordinances should be more permissive, not more restrictive. I don't think that the laws governing things should be stricter. They should be less strict. I think we've actually gone too far the other way, and I think in the city over time we've actually been loosening up a few things. But that's just my philosophy. I'm a live and let live kind of guy, and I just wish people would accept that and understand that just because I disagree with you, it doesn't mean that I hate you or what you stand for. And it also doesn't mean that I'm not open to suggestion to even changing my mind, but attacking me and calling me names and doing it to my friends and my family and my co-workers, if you will, with the city, that's not going to get you anywhere.
Yeah, I think in society in general, but speaking about Mason, here, people do need to sort of, like, what's your intention when you talk to someone? Are you intending to, because you can hear something that somebody said and you can ask them personally about it, or you can go around and say, change the phrase and say, this is what he meant, and that, so there has to be some authenticity and, just being good neighbors again. Like, what happened to that?
Yeah, I think there's, I'm again, people are going to take things out of context and do with them what they will. Have at it. As an aside, there was a very, very funny meme of me as the Grinch who stole Christmas that was posted that I think is one of the funniest things I've ever seen in my whole life. I know the person who did
We'll
it.
have to find that and put it
Yeah,
in the
well,
comment.
the person that did it was being mean-spirited in doing it, and it's very disappointing because I know her. But it was very clever. I'm a person that appreciates, cleverness and intellect and creativity anywhere it comes, and I thought it was very, very funny. I think the authenticity thing is really, really a big deal. Stop coming in and saying, I'm on the take and I have an NDA that I'm not telling you about, and the industry is paying me off, or anyone else in the city for that matter, without evidence. Bring the evidence, bring the receipts. Stop saying that without also at the same time saying, oh, by the way, I'm only here because I don't want you to change the look of my neighbor's land. That is why you're here. It's anti-development mentality. It's the NIMBY, not in my backyard mentality. This has nothing to do, I believe, when you get right down to it, because they can't prove the cancer thing. They can't prove the nitrates thing. Data centers do not produce nitrates. The nitrates came from the ground already. I've read that study. I know what it is. I know the situation. The cancer one, yeah, there are how many hundreds of thousands of diesel semi trucks driving down the road right now, polluting the air way more than a whole bunch of standby generators are gonna that run once a month for an hour. That's just a math problem.
Yeah,
that's just a simple math problem.
Yeah, I forgot about the generator thing. That's just
and people who would say, well, you
non-issue.
convert to natural gas to diesel. That's a legitimate suggestion, because a natural gas generator is going to tend to be cleaner, exhaust wise, but also, and I actually at first thought, and then I did a little research, and what you find out is, the nature of the beast in the construction of these things, the diesel ones tend to be better for the really big ones. They're more efficient for the very large power generating generators. But the other thing is, you need to understand the whole reason the generator's there. The data center demands like a 99.59% uptime. They cannot shut down. They have to always be up. So when they want their generator to run, it's got to run. Well, if your generator's diesel, where you've got the diesel there and you're putting the diesel in it, you've got control. As long as you can get diesel fuel to your building across the road, and you've got multiple sources for that, it's not just one, you've got access to diesel. But if you're on a natural gas system through consumers, you have one supplier. And if that supplier, maybe it's a natural event, a natural weather event that causes you to lose the electricity power that causes the generator. Well, maybe it also kills your gas. So you're not helping yourself by doing that. So I see two reasons to not go with the natural gas generators. And people won't accept that. That is based in truth. In fact, I didn't make it up. I have no skin in the game. I don't own stock in diesel generators. I don't have a diesel generator company, and I don't want anyone to get cancer. And then there's all the federal regulations, state regulations on particulate emissions and diesel or exhaust emissions for every engine. And the funny thing is, when you say that in some of these meetings, people will just laugh, and it's like, what are you laughing at? Do you realize this is truth? The exhaust pipe emissions of many cars now are so darn clean, you could just sit there and let the condensation drip in your hand and lick it. I mean, there's stuff in it. I wouldn't recommend doing that.
No,
but it's
do that.
really, really close. It's very, very clean.
Yeah.
Diesels, I wouldn't do that at all. Diesel's a whole different story, but diesels even are so much cleaner than they were 15, 20 years ago. And this is a bona fide fact, and most of the people saying this actually know that. So if people would just be genuine and say, look, I just don't want it because I like the way my neighbor's land looks now. I don't want to see it with a building on it, a big building. Then at least we can say, okay, well, that's legit, but that they know that wouldn't go very far, right? That's not going to convince someone to not do something. So the only hope they have is to somehow bully you and intimidate you and browbeat you and cause people to become emotionally concerned and upset and weak, and that's where we're at. Kind of is where I see it. And I'm hoping to undo that. I'm hoping we can come up with a path through this that at least gives some people a soft landing and helps them understand, hey, look, we're trying, but we don't necessarily agree with your just automatic fear of a data center generally, and see some significant benefits if one were to come to town. If we could just get everybody to understand that, and then they just, then you deal with life the way you have to deal with life. Or change, like I said, change happens all the time.
Yeah, like we can't stop it anyway.
No.
So let's make sure it works for us, type thing.
Yep.
And what you said about reaching out to, I can speak for that, for sure. Like I've reached out to multiple people on planning commission, city council, and everybody's very willing to meet you, answer your questions. I mean, I've had people meet me in person to talk. Doing these interviews is obviously a little extra, so not everybody's comfortable getting in front of a video like that. But I mean, yeah, ask people, talk about things, they'll answer your questions. I think when I emailed you the other night about doing this interview, I think you replied within like 5 minutes.
Yeah. I happened to be sitting with my computer, and I often am. I mean, I'm in the evening time, and even sometimes during the day, I've got it in my lap, and so if an email comes, it pops up, I know it's there. But I just happened to be perusing them when you came through the first time.
Yeah, I think that's huge, and this is a small town, and obviously maybe in Grand Rapids or Detroit you couldn't necessarily get one-on-one, but I mean here that's a big thing. So if you have fears, if you think somebody signed an NDA or is taking money under the table, ask them about it. They'll,
Well, and if you think it, why do you think it? Where's your evidence? Just because somebody said, oh, they've got an NDA. I know that NDAs happen in this industry. We've been told that by the industry people, but no one from the city has signed one. And no one from the city has any intent of signing one because it's not consistent with what we believe is the way we should represent people. That doesn't mean we're going to tell anybody who asks every single thing we know, because there are some things as a city official that are confidential. But it also doesn't mean that we're going to make it so that you're violating some contract to talk about certain things.
Yeah.
And I've been very consistent. The city manager's been consistent that we have had contacts with the industry. We've had contacts with other municipalities. We've had contacts with people that just want to have, that are big supporters of these things. And we've tried to vet everything we've done. This M3 ordinance, when it was first written especially, went through several drafts from committees in the city to other cities, to people in industry, to township people. I mean, we did the whole thing. So we're trying to come up with something that addresses the concerns that people have, and hopefully we'll get that done soon.
I appreciate you sitting down.
Oh, my pleasure.
Absolutely. And until next time.